Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome back to another Mortal Kombat 1 video. Today, with us still coming off the buzz of that spectacular gameplay reveal. During the Summer's Game Festival, there would be an early access capture event open to journalists, content creators, and pro-level players. So since then, a bunch of extremely interesting dialogue have rolled out with character intros. And dear God, do they reveal a lot about what could be going on with these new retelling of characters and the world surrounding them, because I do believe that there is a villain amongst the cast presented here. Now, please do keep in mind, the intros here are only strictly between 4 characters currently, with them being Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, Kitana, and Kenshi. So not too much has been disclosed here, but I do think we get enough dialogue here to paint a picture of what is exactly going on with each individual character, their place in the world, and what could possibly happen to them going forward. So definitely do expect some theory crafting on my end, just to kind of make sense and expand on the dialogue presented here. Also, I do have to say, quick, massive thank you to my good friend Uncagedgamez for actually supplementing me with the footage that we will be watching here. He was one of the few lucky individuals to get early on hands access, which really makes this video possible. So please do show him some love, as I've linked him and his socials down below. And he's also going to be uploading more Mortal Kombat 1 stuff, so you definitely don't want to miss out on that. Anywho, right away, let's kick things off, starting with Sub-Zero. And I am very pleased to confirm that this is indeed Bi-Han. And, well, what's going on with the character? Well, mild spoilers, if you want to go into this relatively blind, but it looks like despite Bi-Han being one of Liu Kang's loyal guards, he will in fact betray the Fire God. Whilst of course, not entirely clear when or how, we do get a rough idea why during verbal exchanges with other characters on the cast, as Bi-Han looks to be a ruthless zealot of the Lin Kuei, prioritizing the clan's interests and survival above everything else, even that of the gods. As during a verbal exchange with Liu Kang, he does say the following:
"Your actions cost lives, Bi-Han.
They were in the Lin Kuei's best interests."
On the surface, this seems like nothing but to cement his turn, because in yet another interaction, we do hear this:
You will not enter the Temple of the Elements.
I will have the power you've locked away inside.
Now of course, this is a reference to Mortal Kombat mythologies, where the Temple of Elements is a heavily guarded fortress housing Shinnok's amulet. So it may show that the clan itself bears interest in its divine power, or that they've once again been employed by Quan Chi. But there's always the possibility that the temple doesn't in fact hold the amulet, but instead the Hourglass of Time, something that is yet to be referenced or even seen since Mortal Kombat 1's official reveal. Now, seeing as we've mentioned Bi-Han and his devotion to the Lin Kuei, what do we currently know about the clan? Well, we do get quite a few ideas here.
Your clan used to serve a noble cause.
It is better now that we serve ourselves.
So it looks like in this reborn timeline and era, the Lin Kuei are yet again continuing to be a thorn in the side of many. So much so that they fell out of favor with the Royal Edenian line and are extremely ruthless with the intel they have on people. Now, in hindsight, going back to what we saw in the trailers, it's actually painting more of a clear picture, and that Bi-Han was always going to become a villain once again. Hell, even before we knew this was Bi-Han, if him stepping out the shadows wasn't enough of an indication. But what kind of solidifies this was during the gameplay trailer, because when they are in Johnny's apartment, it is just Scoprion that ends up bowing to Liu, with Bi-Han instead pulling a rather disappointed look and glaring at Liu Kang as he is dismissed. And even in another intro, we do get this interaction.
Earthrealm isn't yours to rule.
Nor has it ever been, Bi-Han.
So possibly, in the eyes of the Lin Kuei, Bi-Han has been mentally conditioned to look at Liu Kang as a dangerous threat, one that could maybe vanquish the Lin Kuei. How and when this betrayal may occur, however, is the real question, and I think we all know who falls into the equation here. Scoprion, or presumably to be announced, Kuai Liang. Now it is worth mentioning, Kuai is yet to be confirmed as Scoprion, but seeing as they confirmed them to be brothers already, it's only natural to assume that this is the case. And it also really helps that both are wearing Lin Kuei medallions. But what interests me is the relationship between the two. I believe that Bi-Han's betrayal will eventually cause Kuai Liang to turn his back on his brother, something that is foreshadowed in the very first trailer. So this could force Kuai Liang to possibly leave the Lin Kuei and then create the Shirai Ryu, something somewhat reminiscent of Takeda from the original canon, who was the founder of the Shirai Ryu, someone who took the teachings of the Lin Kuei and then completely transformed it into its own separate style and clan. But this is the Lin Kuei, so no one ever really ends up leaving, at least not alive. So I do have a theory that Bi-Han will kill his brother, causing Kuai Liang to become this world's Scorpion. Because gameplay wise, they do have to find a way for these two to clash. And they also need to find a reason why a cryomancer like Kuai Liang now has the ability to utilize fire, because it wouldn't really make sense for him to not have it. But do we know if Kuai Liang exists here? Well, yes actually. During an intro between Kenshi and Liu Kang, he is name dropped here. So of the three main ninjas, the only one that hasn't been mentioned is Hanzo Hisashi, so he may not exist here, at least not right now. Now, with these two out the way, let's touch on Princess Kitana. And it looks like quite a bit is going on here. What's an interesting sequence of events is learning that apparently Mileena is Kitana's older sister. Yes, you heard that right. In this timeline, it looks like Mileena is not a spliced clone of Kitana, but instead just an older sibling. So it looks like she is set to become queen when Sindel decides to retire from the throne. Something that does seem to be quite eerily close, or has happened, as what we see in the very first trailer could have in fact been Mileena's coronation. But of course, with this being Mortal Kombat, it's not quite so cut and dry, as Mileena in this timeline, despite not being a spliced clone, instead suffers from a rare disease, which causes her to revert to her Tarkatan appearance, something she desperately tries to hide. So maybe in this timeline, the Tarkatans aren't a race of people, but in fact a disease that transforms and alters people into that of monsters. Now this version of Kitana is interesting in so many ways. Being the youngest daughter of Sindel, Kitana looks to be a bodyguard of sorts, willingly staying by her side despite Mileena suspecting her to usurp her throne. And we do get a few references of this in this intro.
Living in your sister's shadow wastes your potential.
It is my duty and privilege to serve her.
So it looks like in this timeline, Kitana is effectively serving Jade's role from the previous timeline. And talking of Jade, we do actually get a name drop of her here.
Keep Countess Jade close. She is critical to your future.
Is it possible you could be more cryptic?
So yes, things do look to be very intriguing in regards to Jade as a character. No longer in her bodyguard role anymore, Jade seems to be in quite a high position with her role as a countess. Now, seeing as we touched on Liu Kang, the romance seems to kind of be there. But there was only a brief flicker of that spark, as of right now.
Will the suffering of the realms ever cease?
Those who live in them will decide.
What I am interested to see is actually how long have the two known each other, because with Liu Kang's immortality now, it kind of puts them on a similar playing field, at least in terms of time. We also get a few interesting interactions between herself and Kenshi, one showing that she has met the Takahashi line before.
Ever battle a blind swordsman?
You aren't the first Takahashi.
Now, I could be looking way too deep into this, but I think this may touch on a theory I've had, where the Takahashi line are cursed to go blind in exchange for the power of Sento. I mean, even when we look at that demon ancestor, we can see that he suffered a similar fate. And as seen in that gameplay reveal trailer, we do get to see Kenshi retain his eyesight. However, in game, we do see him blind once more. So I suspect Kitana will meet him prior, just before leaving his sight. As for who the perpetrator is, well, I'll be taking a crack at that when we get to Kenshi's section. Now, the most intriguing interaction between the two is when Kitana says the following.
I misjudged you and your comrades.
Didn't help you had a snake hissing in your ear.
It looks like initially, Kitana was quite weary of Liu Kang's crusade with recruiting fighters across the realm, especially with this villainous Sub-Zero amongst the group. But it looks like there's someone else amongst that royal court who has been plotting and scheming against the fire god. So who could that be? Well, there's actually quite a few contenders here. The first would of course be the sorcerer Shang Tsung, who has been confirmed for the game and is also typically a villain associated with snakes, as he has a tendency to stab anyone and everyone in the back. And with Kenshi's history with Shang Tsung, it makes a lot of sense that he may be aware of Shang Tsung's deeds, because back in the original timeline, it was Shang responsible for him going blind. Now, our next choice here is the queen herself, Sindel. Naturally, many of us are still kind of getting over the whole massive character shift that she did have in Aftermath. So whilst this reboot and retelling may have reverted this character back to her original conception, I still felt it was kind of worth including her amongst the candidates, as understandably it's most certainly warranted. Our final option here is Tanya, a character that has historically even been branded as a traitor amongst her own people. Although she did take quite a sudden and very strange patriotic change during the reboot trilogy. I do think that this choice is quite high, especially with Mileena being on the base roster, but currently she isn't even a cameo character, so this idea could be on the table if she is confirmed. So with Kitana out the way, let's move on to Kenshi. And it looks like there's more than meets the eye with this character, especially this new interpretation of him. Now first off, Kenshi's tattoos have been a pretty big point of contention for his overall design, as we've never previously seen this look from him. Naturally, many of us, including myself, believe that these tattoos could in fact be a sign of having ties to the Yakuza, but I do think this could in fact be ties to the Black Dragons, as during an interaction with Liu Kang, we do hear the following.
Kuai Liang says I shouldn't trust the Black Dragon.
In this, as in all timelines, they are scoundrels.
So, if I was guesstimating, Kenshi could have made a deal with the Black Dragons in order to track down Sento, completely unaware that no one simply walks away from the Black Dragons. So as payment, I believe that it's not Shang Tsung that takes his sights here, but instead the Black Dragons themselves, which is completely in the twisted nature of the crime syndicates. For what use is a weapon of precision without the eyes to guide them? I know there's been a reference to Song during a mirror match between the two, which of course alludes to Shang Tsung, but it feels like an older Kenshi reaching out to a much younger version of himself, who did retain his sight. And to somewhat cement this idea, we do have an interesting interaction with Liu Kang here.
Your war on the underworld is taking innocent lives.
Am I to blame for my enemy's wanton violence?
So maybe after going blind, Kenshi would go on a one-man crusade, looking to destroy the Syndicate. But it does look to be a fight that many bystanders are caught in. Now, cutting to Sub-Zero, we do have an interesting interaction here, implying that Bi-Han has been keeping very close tabs on the Takahashi.
I've learned your secret. Have the others?
Is that the Lin Kuei's new tactic? Extortion?
Again, I do think this sets up what I've said with Kenshi's ties to the Black Dragons. However, I also think it's very possible that Bi-Han could be referring to something else, or more specifically, someone else. Suchin, whilst not heavily explored in the main line of games, in the rebooted timeline, this was Kenshi's lover who did perish to the Red Dragon. But all these events kind of happened during the pseudo-canon NKX series, so we may kind of get a similar thing here. But is Suchin alive in this timeline? Well, it is confirmed between yet another interaction with himself and Liu Kang.
Suchin wants me back.
You made as strong an impression as she did.
So Kenshi could actually be protecting her, or even possibly their unborn child Takeda, as we know that during this timeline, the Kombat kids, I hate that term, are yet to exist during this time period. In terms of ancestry, we do get quite a few interesting bits of world building here. First, being the Katana one I mentioned earlier. But we now have another through Bi-Han, showing that their ancestral line have not just clashed before, but it does imply that previous Sub-Zeros may have in fact been appointed to kill them.
My ancestors say they've tangled with yours.
Has it occurred to you to ask them why?
In terms of story, world building, and narratives, this was all I was able to decipher and really theorycraft from what we have here. Now, I know on paper they haven't revealed too much, but with the way this new, fresh world simply just bleeds with potential, I naturally can't help but put my theory cap on and try to decipher everything we have here. Because essentially, this new timeline is a modernized retelling that takes ideas and concepts from the past and packages them in a new way for a more modern audience. So with that said, I do hope you have enjoyed this video. I know I haven't covered every bit of dialogue here, but there's a lot of them during mirror matches, where they feel more like Easter eggs, and nods to other characters than something we'll actually see in game. Thus, I don't think many of them really hold any weight here. But again, I hope this does all paint a far more full picture of what we will see very soon. Now, what do you think is going on narratively here? Do you think any of the ideas I pointed out will actually take fruition? And of course, and please do let me know if there was anything I did overlook, because a lot happens here. But for now, everyone, that's been it for me. So as always, everyone, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting as we all eagerly await more Mortal Kombat 1 news. Take care, everyone. I'll catch you all soon.